Welcome to Rise, Grind, and Shine, a podcast for creatives and entrepreneurs who are on their grind, crushing their goals, and determined to live their best life. This podcast is brought to you by The Creative Mill, and I'm your host, Chrissy Miller, founder and owner. In every episode, we're here to help you create space for your greatness to shine, inspire you to launch into action, and teach you how to grind toward your goals responsibly. So come on this journey with us as we rise, grind, and shine together. Let's jump into today's episode. What is up, my good people? We are finally back. Welcome to episode 3 of the Rise, Grind, and Shine podcast. I am your host, Chrissy Miller, and now I know it's been a hot minute. We started the podcast back in May of this year and cranked out 2 episodes, and here we are in October rolling out episode 3. Nah, don't y'all do me bad and talk about me bad, because it has been quite a journey in the past 4 months since the last episode dropped. You know, I thought in my own superhero powers that I was going to be able to maintain recording my podcast through Essence Festival and through all of the summer travels and all of the things that have happened, and I couldn't. And you know, that's one of the realities of entrepreneur life, or just adult work life in general, is that sometimes life just happens and we have to take our moments and pick up the pieces when we have to pick them up and pivot when we have to. And that's really what we're going to be talking about today on the podcast, is knowing when it's time to take a leap, a pivot, a shift, whatever you want to call it. Sometimes things just need to change and it's time. But we are going to catch you up today on what's been going on at the Creative Mill. So last time we were together on the podcast, we were interviewing my dear brother, Terrence Christopher, talking about our journey from poverty and the projects into purpose and prosperity. And, you know, I've just been seeing that lived out each and every day. This has actually been probably one of my most successful years to date as being an entrepreneur. And I'm going to share all of those things with you guys. So, man, where do we start? I guess we're going to start with what took me away from the podcast, which was my annual offering to the cultural scene, which is Essence Festival. So if you tuned in, and if you didn't, go back, start with episode 1 so you can learn what in the world is the Creative Mill and who in the world is Chrissy Miller. And you will hear all about the fact that I have been working with Essence Festival of Culture for 10 years now, actually 10 festivals over the past 12 years, because y'all know those COVID years don't count, right? But I am the director of talent movement over at the Convention Center. If you've ever been, you know, it's a big footprint. If you haven't been, shame on you. It is such an experience that I think is beneficial, not just for the dope music and it's all of the experiences, but you can learn so much. There's so much culture. There's so much educational opportunities. And there's a whole bunch of free stuff. So if you are not up on Essence Festival and you don't know all the things, I just want to plug that there is a lot of free opportunities and content. It's not just the concerts at the Superdome, but we have free programming 3 days straight at the Convention Center. They should love me for doing this plug for them. We have 3 days of multiple stages and activation booths from various large corporate partners like Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Target, so many things. And they have an entire film festival going on. There's just so much happening. And my team has the awesome privilege of getting people onto every single one of those stages. So in our talent movement world, celebrities come, whether they're speaking or performing, or doing interviews, they literally all get transported to every stage and every corner of that convention center by my team. And it was incredible to see for this 10th festival of mine that our team grew to 80 people. You heard me right, y'all, 80. I remember the early days where first it was just me and a couple of people, me and random strangers, and it has literally grown. Sometimes we only had like 15 people, 20 people, and now literally 80 people. So you can imagine the load and the weight of being a little entrepreneur who has to level up big time and in such a big way. This is the first year we've had such a large team, and I could not have done it alone. So I definitely want to give a huge shout out. I hope they're listening to all of my festival leaders on our team. They do all of the really hard lifting throughout the festival. I'm just the one who makes sure everybody gets paid, and I answer the big questions. So this was an incredible festival of seeing the team grow. It's one thing to be focused on your own growth, but when you can watch over a period of time other people around you grow and continue to give people opportunities, it's just such an amazing experience. And it reminds me why I do what I do, why I sit on the calls all the time, and why sometimes I'm stressed out and ready to pull my hair out, toss my wig across the room. It's because I get to give opportunities to people who would not normally have those experiences. So it's been really dope to see people growing into the roles that maybe they weren't qualified when we first started. Shoot, I wasn't qualified when we first started, but we've all grown into these roles, and it's been really incredible. And this year, Chrissy walked fully in CEO mode, and it was great because I had such a sharp leadership team to handle all the things. I could be the owner of the business. I could be the director. I could step away. And, if I never made it down to make sure things were okay, the ship was still sailing. The ball was still rolling. And it's an incredible feeling to get to that point where, you just put on the big girl draws and you make sure that things happen so that your team is supported. So Essence Festival was a big, big lift this year, but I think, and I've heard it echoed many, many times, that for our talent movement team, this was literally the best year that we've ever had. So kudos to them. And I'm just grateful for the opportunity to keep getting to do this. So that took up basically April to July. And then we went on lots of trips because it was time to chill out. And it's so important to rest. We go through the ebbs and flows, especially as creatives and entrepreneurs. Sometimes we grind, but we don't balance that with seasons of rest or opportunities of rest. And in future episodes, I definitely will get into my grind responsibly because I feel like there is a healthy way to grind toward your goals. It doesn't have to be the work, don't ever sleep culture of hustling that we have, but we are focused on our goals and we're committed to getting them done. So that's what we've been doing over here at the Creative Mill. We've been working. There are a couple more festivals that I did over the end of the summer. And then, man, just when I thought life was about to calm down and I said, I'm so excited to get back into my podcasting. And then out of nowhere in September, y'all, all of the events hit that I just had no clue were definitely going to come through. And I was hustling. That's what was really happening. I hustled unexpectedly, and man, I have to say that it was the most financially productive time of my life. But it was challenging. Bouncing around, often not being home for large chunks of time and just living on the road. But we made it, and I'm going to testify that I had always been doubtful. Now, if you're in the coaching world, digital products world, people always rave about like 10K months, or I had a $100,000 month, and they offer these high ticket offers and things like that. I've always heard that, and somewhere in the back of my brain, in my limited thinking, never believed that would happen for me. I think that's some of that poverty mindset. You hear people that are like killing it and making a lot of money, and even though you want to think that that could happen to you, you don't really believe that that could happen to you. And if I'm honest, that was me. But God and all of this work proved me wrong, and I am really happy, and no cap and no bragging, but gonna say that I had a over 10K month in September, which totally blew my little small town girl mind, because we in a big city now. We have grown, and we have matured, and we have put in sweat equity to get to where we are. And the crazy thing is that I can honestly say that all of the work that I was able to do in this past month wasn't because I started really pushing my business and my brand. I've been working on it. I've been putting together the materials, and the things are on their way, but this was all residual relationship product. I don't know if that's a thing, but I just coined that. The result of just working well with people and them remembering like, oh, hey, Chrissy could do this. Oh, the Creative Mill could do this. And that's what it was. It was last minute projects that came up, events that I could work on. I've been stage managing and producing events, and it's just been so incredible. But with all of that, all of those changes comes sometimes the need to shift and pivot. One of the things that didn't really go as I planned coming into the end of this year was, as many of you know, I teach music lessons, and that's really been kind of the foundational support for my life. I can always revert back to teaching music. It's always there. I have really incredible students, whether they were in school setting or in private lessons. And right now I've only been a private music teacher for the past 2 years, which has been really awesome. But I started feeling the pull of, I don't know that this is something that's going to continue forever. And it's hard because I love my students and I love sharing the gift of music with people and helping them to discover their own gifts. But there is something that I discovered a couple of years ago as I was kind of in my season of epiphany and self-discovery after I moved out here to Vegas, was that I had gotten so burnt out on teaching, and I just felt like it wasn't quite the right fit. I love music and I'm passionate about music, and I enjoy impacting people's lives. And I think that the crossroads of that was being a music teacher. Am I really good at it? Sure. Is it exactly what I wanted to be doing? Not exactly. And it took a long time for me to figure that out, that it wasn't exactly what I wanted to be doing. And so I find myself at that same space again. I love my students. I love music, but I don't know that teaching is the thing. I loved coaching people and helping them to recognize their potential and helping them to see new opportunities for them to thrive in their purpose. And what I have noticed as we are going in that direction and growing our event management business is that it does not have the flexibility that, or the teaching doesn't have the flexibility to be able to do all of those things. And that's what I want you to think about today as we're talking about shifting and pivoting and taking the big leap. And I'll talk about a book I was just reading over the weekend, is that, you know, even in the success of working a lot of events in the past month, I had something that was not successful, and that was a teaching gig that I had at a local studio here. And over the weekend, in full transparency, I got a call and they let me go. And I wasn't shocked. I've just never been fired before, y'all. I'm going to tell the truth. I ain't never been fired from a job before. I don't think. One of my friends can call and check me on that because I have the worst memory in the world. But I'm pretty sure I have never been fired. And so this was kind of a surprise in that way. But because I worked so many events in the past month, they need a consistent teacher. And I completely agree. And I was already thinking it. They just kind of beat me to the punch, honestly. And so I was not shocked. And I said, okay, thanks. I totally understand that. No problem at all. And the truth is that I felt that tug and I felt the shift that needed to happen. And I just had not had the courage to step up and do it yet. That's really what happened. And so in the mix of having that decision made for me and making that space, it forces me to get on the grind and figure out what's next. Business is growing and has great potential, but at the same time, like any other entrepreneur who's still fairly new in the journey, there comes some fear. And that's something you really have to get over, is that sometimes your safety nets have to go away. And sometimes you really have to trust. Now, by all means, if you are just starting off in your entrepreneur journey, and you ain't got no money saved on the side, you don't have any plan, please do not quit your job. Do not say Chrissy got on this podcast and told me to quit my job and embark on my entrepreneur journey with no plan and no safety net. Literally not. What I am saying is that I am in a good place at this point in my life, thank you, Jesus, that losing a small bit of income was not going to be too much impactful. I have the grace and the space and some extra finances to take some time to figure out what the next steps in the next season is going to look like. But this shift, this tug that I felt, even just in the past few months, I felt it before. And you have probably felt it before, that feeling of being kind of discontent, kind of uncomfortable, like I feel like there's supposed to be more than this. My job doesn't satisfy me. The career that I've chosen just doesn't seem to fit anymore. And I'm going to challenge you today to lean into that discomfort, lean into that discontent. Realize what isn't serving you anymore. So the job that you had, it may have worked really great for the past few years. You have probably paid your bills. You had extra funds to go on a little trip or something, and that was great. But is that really what is going to fill your tank for years to come? Is that really what is going to set you up for success, to build a legacy for your family? Does that really feel like the thing that wakes you up in the morning and you get so excited to do? If you don't get those feelings about what you're doing now, chances are it's about time for you to start shifting. I've recognized this, like I said, many times in my past few years of, this doesn't feel good anymore. This doesn't feel right anymore. And that feeling was never wrong. Whether I liked it or not, some type of shift was always on the horizon. I made a post just a day ago about a song that I love to sing, a worship song that it's called I'll Make Room for You. And we often say that we're going to make space and we want to move ahead and push forward in our careers, but sometimes it's not comfortable to actually make the space. Sometimes it's not comfortable. Actually, most of the time, it's not comfortable to make the shift and make the move, quit the job and start something else, or pursue the hobby that you have that could really turn into a full career. but it's necessary. And if you are a believer like me and asking God to help you make that shift and allow him to do the things in your life that you're supposed to be doing, sometimes he gonna make that shift for you. I prayed and asked and told God that I would make room and I would be willing to go and do and be whatever I was called to be. And in this season, when I said that, I was slow to the punch to make that room. And God said, okay, I'm going to make it for you. And the space is now made. So I want to challenge you to ask yourself a couple of questions. Ask yourself, am I doing what I'm most passionate about, what I really feel called to do? This is a question that I literally have on my wall. And I have these huge, conference size papers that I stick on my wall, and I've asked these questions and I wrote out the answers. And I always say, what am I passionate about doing? And from time to time, I have to look up at that and say, am I doing those things? I also have under that, what do I not like doing? And then from time to time, I have to check that list and say, oh, why am I still doing that? Why am I doing that task? Why am I still holding on to that job or that part of a job? And I have to hold myself accountable. So I'm going to ask you, are you doing what you are most passionate about? The next one is, does the career or job that I have right now really fill my tank? And what's that mean? Do you feel fulfilled? When you end your day, do you feel completely drained? When you wake up in the morning, is it a chore and a task? Now, I understand sometimes it's just hard to get out of bed. Even doing what I love to be doing, sometimes it's just hard to get out of bed. But do you just grind your teeth at the idea of going into work? If you feel that way, chances are you're not in a place where your tank can be filled. And then you should ask, how is what I'm doing making an impact or building a legacy for my future or my future family? What you do now is sowing seeds for your future, for your tomorrow. We want to set ourselves up for success in our future, for our future family, for your future kids. And so we have to make the decisions now, not even just in our career, in our finances, but even in our health. Those seeds that you are sowing now, being stuck in a dead-end job, not taking care of your body, speaking negative things over your life, those things are just seeds being sown, and they're going to manifest at some point in your life. You may not see it right now, but down the line, you are going to see the product of the things that you are doing right now. And I want you to think, based on those answers, is it time for my life to shift? Is it time for me to do something different? I felt that way, and then I moved across the country. I'm not saying you got to move across the country or even leave your job, but something has to change. You deserve to be the best version of yourself. You deserve to have a thriving life. You deserve to wake up and love what you do and who you are. So it's time to start making some changes. In the next couple of episodes of this podcast, we are going to talk about what that looks like. I have been reading, and y'all, I read a whole book in a weekend, and that's a big deal if you know me, that I sat down long enough to read a whole book. And I read the hard copy. I sure did. And it was called The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. And it really, I've heard pieces and parts of the concepts, but this really was kind of the foundational book that got started on things like finding your zone of genius and living past your upper limiting problems and beliefs. And all of those things, oh man, they just really revolutionized my way of thinking, even over the past few days. And I am so excited to be able to share those things and walk through those things with all of you. But I want you to start thinking, Google it, YouTube it, find another podcast episode about your zone of genius. That is when you are doing what you are absolutely passionate about doing and can do to the highest level of your abilities, and it impacts other people. If you are not doing that, even a fraction of your time and of your life, then it is time to shift. If you are not doing something that brings you joy and can also put some cash in your pocket, you are not in your zone of genius. You are in probably what people have called the zone of excellence, which is right under zone of genius. So you're doing stuff really well and you might make good money for it, but you're not at your fullest level of joy and you're not living at your fullest potential. So I'm going to challenge you to find what that looks like. And I want you to stay tuned to the coming podcast. Stay tuned to all of the things that we're going to be releasing over the next few months out of the Creative Mill, because I am really, really passionate and really excited to help people find their zone of genius, find your unique abilities, find out what really drives you to be your best and help you to get to that space. Until next time, keep shining. Thanks for listening in to today's episode. Make sure to follow us on socials. It's at Chrissy the Mill, as well as at thecreativemill.co. Hit the DMs and tell us what you thought of today's episode. If it inspired you to action, let us know. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to show your love by hitting the subscribe button. Turn those notifications on so you know exactly when the next episode is dropped. Most of all, you can show your support by sharing this podcast with your people, because your people are my people. And make sure that you leave a review on the podcast platform of your choice. Until next time, holla at your girl.